This is going to be recorded.
Okay.
Hello, welcome. Can everyone in this room hear me? Yeah. Yes. Hopefully everyone on the Zoom can hear me as well. My name is Anna Siedzik. I am the Senior Project Manager and Lottery Agent for Beverly Village for Living in the Arts. We have an amazing panel of speakers. We're going to tell you all about the project today, but I wanted to offer some housekeeping notes for the good of the order. Actually, does someone mind maybe closing one of those doors over there? It's a little noisy from the hall. So the first thing is that this meeting is being recorded. There is a Zoom session going along with these slides. And because of the recording, just bear in mind that everything will be made public. It will go onto the property's website. So because of that, and for confidentiality, we will not be entertaining any personal questions about your application. I'm sure some of you have applied. We may have spoken. Right now is not the time to go deep into your personal application. I am happy to stay after the session to talk to anyone who wants, as long as they want, within reason. So I just wanted to let people know that we're going to go through the presentation. If you have more general questions about the process, we ask that you save them to the end. We are hopeful that this presentation answers every question and everyone walks out of here knowing everything about BVLA. So just wanted to offer those notes. I'm going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Kristen Carlson, who is going to kick it off. You're going to want to look.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kristen Carlson. I'm the director. I'm the director for real estate development at Harbor Light Homes. Probably most of you know our fearless leader, Andrew DeFranza. He couldn't be here this morning, but he sends his greetings. So Beverly Village for Living in the Arts is a collaboration, a partnership between Harbor Light Homes and our partners at Beacon Communities. So we're delighted to be working with them on this. The project is in construction now. It's looking amazing. I had the chance to go and visit it. It's beautiful. We are in the application process, as you all know. Once we get through the lottery, construction completion and lease up, Beacon Communities will be managing the project, but Harbor Light Homes is here. We're local in Beverly, so we're around. So I'll just introduce our team really quickly. We've got Matt Tobine from Beacon.
Nice to meet you.
Jasa Feliz. Hi, everyone. Also from Beacon, and obviously myself and Anna from Harbor Light. So just a quick minute about Harbor Light Homes. We develop and manage affordable housing for families, for seniors, for individuals with disabilities, for individuals who are homeless throughout the North Shore. We provide services. We do advocacy work. We do property management. We do real estate development. So we do a whole bunch of different things. And our goal is really for everyone to have a safe, comfortable, affordable home. Okay, some of you probably know about our other projects. We have senior housing. We have housing in Rockport, newly opened. Ipswich, Beverly, and Saugus. We have supportive senior housing in Peabody and Beverly. We have family housing in Beverly, Hamilton, Marblehead, Salem, Wenham, and Rockport. And we also have some first-time homebuyer properties in Gloucester. We've got a lot coming up, so we're busy. We are working on Agawam Village in Ipswich, Asbury Common in Hamilton, which will be new family housing. Obviously Beverly Village for living in the arts. Catalyst Housing, a project in Lynn for homeless young adults, many of whom are aging out of the foster care system. Working on another senior project in Gloucester, Harborview Place. Maple Woods, also a senior project in Wenham that is currently going through its lease-up process and finishing construction. And Windward Crossing, a project in Raleigh, which will be mixed use. So there's a lot going on. And this is just, you know, I think I'll just say all of those projects I mentioned, they're all affordable, all of them. And we, you know, we know that there's a huge impact and also a huge need. We see it at every, you know, lottery. We hear from people pretty much daily looking for housing resources. So we are, we're hard at work, and those are just some of the numbers.
Great, thanks, Kristen.
There you go.
My name is Matt Tobine, and I am one of the regional vice presidents at Beacon Communities. And I work in the property management company of Beacon. So I'll just give you a quick profile of the company. We're about 1,000 employees. We have about 150 communities spread all across the East Coast. We're in most states east of the Mississippi. And we're about 20,000 apartment homes. So pretty good sized company, but we are a Massachusetts-based company, and a lot of our footprint is based here in Massachusetts. And we also have a number of developments that are on the North Shore in communities that are just like Beverly. If we sound familiar to you, we do have one development down on Rantoul Street at 215 Rantoul Street called Jacqueline Tower. We acquired that building from Equity about in 2012, and we're thrilled to be doing more business in Beverly. One of the things, Beacon plays a lot of roles within the multifamily development industry. One of the things that we do is provide property management services to all of our communities. So as Kristen mentioned, the project is being developed with Harborlight. The property management is going to be provided by Beacon Residential Management. So once the property is built and applications start to be processed for move-in and beyond, my team and I will be running the property day to day, ensuring its function and providing high quality property management services to the building, both in terms of the way that it looks, but also to make sure that we're providing sort of an enhanced environment for our residents to live, particularly those who are trying to age in place. One of the things within the property management company that Beacon is most proud of is our wellness program. And what this offers is many services that are geared towards helping people to live an independent lifestyle for longer than they otherwise maybe would have without the services. So some of the things that we may provide are nursing services, and I would say light medical services on site. We are going to have space built out for this, and it's certainly a goal for something that we are aiming to provide down the road. And it's important and on my list to make sure that it's a component of Beverly Village once the property is fully leased up. The community is going to have a full-time resident services coordinator And that person is going to be charged with, and in addition to some local assistance that Harbor Light's going to provide, but charged with creating partnerships within the community to bring services into the building that can benefit our residents. So whether it's education about public safety, whether it's programming around non-smoking and the physical and health effects of that, or whether it's, you know, sort of coordinating parties and activities and bingo and barbecues and you know, story hours, magicians. Like, we've had a whole spread of different kind of programs that we've brought into the building. That's what that person is going to do, and they will be available to residents on a full-time basis. So it'll be a 40-hour-a-week position. And in addition, if residents are struggling with things like paying their rents or getting to a doctor's appointment, they can help to coordinate some of that care. We are, one of the great features of the new community is that we're going to have a transportation service that has a stop at the building to assist people with getting out to do the things that they need to do that that they may struggle with getting to, like doctor's appointments or a grocery store or even down to the senior center. So that's just sort of a quick overview of what we're gonna offer at the building. I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot of you as you move through the application process. You'll be seeing a lot of us as you move through the application process. So I look forward to seeing you and to receiving your applications and to hopefully process them for moving.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Hi, everybody. My name is Jaysa Feliz. And I am a development director at Beacon Communities. So my role is on the development side. So I worked with the design team to design the space. As Kristen mentioned, it is beautiful. It's under construction right now. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our vision for transforming the former Briscoe School that you all know and love, that has been around for 100 years now. It was built in 1923. So we are just so thrilled to be a part of its next century of life, turning into Beverly Village for Living and the Arts, which is this affordable senior housing community. So the property, you know, essentially will be turning the classrooms into apartments. So that's the main kind of construction portion. But there are a lot of other cool features of the building that will just transform spaces that used to be used for educational purposes into really a thriving new residential community. So in addition to those 85 apartments, 74 of them will be one-bedroom apartments and 11 studios in the former classroom spaces. The former boys and girls locker rooms will become 6 additional units. Those are live-work studios, which we are intending for occupancy for artists. So those are another 6 apartments. So there will be a total of 91 apartments. We are here today to talk about the lottery and application process for the 85 affordable apartments. So if you're interested or know someone that's interested in the 6 artists live work studios, we do have a separate application process for that, and we will talk about that later. In addition, the former gym in the building will turn into beautiful amenity spaces. So Matt was just talking about Beacon's Living Well by Design services. So those will run out of these amenity spaces. And so, for example, we have Let's see here, some of the amenities, a fitness center, we'll have a library in that area. We will have some office spaces where some of the visiting, for example, medical or nursing staff will come and provide services to the residents. There's a workshop in that area as well. So just really a space for everyone that lives in the community to come and interact with each other and engage in programming and activities. And lastly, there is a former auditorium in the building that we are preserving. So since this is a historic building, we are keeping a lot of the original elements of the building in place and preserving them for future use. So that space in particular, we are hoping to partner with a local theater partner to use as a community performing arts space. So that will be available to the public. So it's just a great way to bring in the rich arts and culture that, you know, Beverly is so famous for. You know, there are a lot of great artistic and cultural institutions up here that we are hoping to just bring that artistic energy into the building, both through the theater and through the artist live workspaces. Just a couple more notes on the development itself. Another one of our goals, aside from preserving the historic features of the building and transforming the spaces for a future residential community, was also to make it a green and healthy building. So the building is being designed to LEED Silver standards, which is a pretty high sustainability standard. So what that means is that we're being really careful about you know, things like making sure the air is clean in the building. So we will have energy efficient heating and cooling systems that recycles air. We're building a new water infiltration system on the site. We will have solar panels to power electricity in the common areas. And that will also, oh, here's the man, Andrew DeFranz from Harborlight. Hi. We will also have solar panels that will heat the hot water for the whole building. So we really incorporated a lot of green and sustainable design features into the building design to make sure that it is a healthy place to live and to engage in activities. Other amenities that will be included, almost all apartments will have washers and dryers inside the apartments. And aside from the interior amenity spaces that I mentioned in the former gym, outside there will be a beautiful patio. There will be a small dog walking area. So it really will be, we're hoping, just a vibrant community with lots of spaces for folks to interact with each other. And this is just some sample floor plans of what some of the apartments could look like once someone has moved in with all their furniture. You know, as I mentioned, we are converting the former classrooms into apartments. So not all classrooms were the same. So there is some variety between the units. So not all the apartments will be specifically laid out this way, but these are just some examples so that everyone has a taste of what's coming. And as Chris and Matt mentioned, we're in construction right now, and we are scheduled to complete construction this fall. So we are very much looking forward to opening the community to all of you and its future residents. So with that, I will hand it over to Anna to start talking about how you might be eligible to live at this new community.
Great, thank you. I'm going to play the strangest piano ever, maybe. Oh, are you gonna do the other side for me? I was preparing to do both sides together. So,
Good.
thank you. So is everyone really excited about BVLA? Yes? Do people want to understand how to apply? Yes. So I'm going to talk you through that process. The first and sort of foremost question people have is, am I eligible? So we've tried to simplify what it means to be eligible. As you can see here, we've got sort of two different income levels at play. And we have two different age restrictions at play. So as Jason said, just like every classroom is not the same, not every unit has the same rules, if you want to think of it that way. Some of them have different ages, some of them have different incomes, some of them have different rents. And I know that that's a lot for people to understand. The good news is you do not have to become a housing expert. You have to trust us, the pretend experts, to understand what you're eligible for, to put you into the right grouping. So don't get overwhelmed by this point. A lot of people feel really pressure to understand every nuance of housing law. You don't have to. That's what we're here for. So as you look at this, as Jason said, most of the units at BVLA are one bedroom. There are some studio units. For the non-subsidized units, there are variable rents that go along with that. I want to draw your attention to a moment though. For the first part, when it says rent is based on income, those units are going to be subsidized by either Section 8 or Massachusetts Rental Voucher Program, MRVP, project-based vouchers that the facility will have. And so the rent is going to vary there. It's typically between 30 to 40% of your income, but that's something that gets decided by the leasing process as you go through it. So that's what that means. I have an FAQ in a minute that we'll talk through a real-time example. So two different age restrictions. The subsidized units are age restricted to those who are 62 and up. On the application, it's very clear. When do you need to be 62? One member of the household has to be 62 by the day of the lottery. So if you turn 62 the day after the lottery, you will not be eligible. And I know that that's heartbreaking. We've already had a couple of people hit that wall and it's sad, but you have to have a limit. So that's all included in the application. It'll help guide you through it. Otherwise, you sort of see the layout. There are two different units that are studio size, 14. This is the 17 units at one income group. And then we have 68 units at the 60% group, which have a different financial structure. Right, the age restrictions are different. So it has to do with the underlying program rules of the subsidized units. So that age restriction, again, at the bottom, one person in the household has to meet the age restriction. So if you are moving in with your adult child, one of you has to meet the age restriction. If you're moving in as a couple, one of you has to meet the age restriction, right? So there's a lot of different ways that could look, but that's sort of the basic rule there. Next slide, please. The same concept. So the question was, what about the 55? And it's the same rule. One member of the household has to meet the age restriction for that unit by the day of the lottery itself. It depends on the unit.
So just to be clear, out of the 85 affordable units, thank you, Anna. Out of the 85 affordable units, 17 of them are restricted at 62 plus.
16
And-
of them.
Sorry,
16 of them. 16.
What about oh, sorry, 16, not 17. 16 of them are restricted at 62 plus, and the rest of them are restricted at 55 plus. So actually, most of them are at 55
Mhm.
plus. And then there's 16 of them that you have to be 62 or older to qualify for. I hope that clarifies.
It does. If I can ask, I know there's going to be questions. We'll get through the presentation and then we're happy to take questions at the end. Okay, next slide, please. So we're going to go through some of these frequently asked questions, and these have been heavily curated to hopefully hit the high points. So I'm going to moderate, but if other people have things to add, please feel free to jump in. First question is, why are there multiple rents listed for the same unit type? The answer is that apartments will be offered for applicants at two different income levels, 30% AMI and 60% AMI. AMI stands for Area Median Income, and this is a metric used by HUD to determine income eligibility for affordable housing across the country. Most of the 30% AMI units at BVLA are subsidized by state and federal funding in the form of project-based vouchers. Applicants who are eligible for subsidized 30% AMI units will pay a fixed percentage of their gross annual income toward rent, regardless of what that income will be. For example, if you are a single person whose income is $21,000 a year, you would pay approximately $7,000 a year toward rent. For these 30% subsidized units, the rents are variable based on income. So someone making $21,000 a year would not pay the same amount as someone making $10,000, but they would typically pay the same percentage. That's a really important point, hard to understand, that's why I want to put it in writing. If your eligibility places you in an unsubsidized unit at either the 30 or 60% level, your rent will be fixed at or near the maximum allowable rent, and just like the income limits themselves, those maximum allowable rents are set by HUD. I'm going to go back one slide. If you look at that, those rents you're seeing, the monthly rent, those are the maximum allowable rents for this year set by HUD. They will change every year. They typically increase. They could potentially decrease, but I don't know if I've ever seen that in my history. I'm not sure if Mr. DeFrance has ever seen a decrease. Maybe it's happened. So that's what that number is coming from. It's a HUD number. It's not a Harbor Light number. It's not a Beacon number. It comes to us from the federal government. Okay, next question. Are there minimum income limits? And the answer is yes. Minimum income limits may apply for the 60% AMI units and the unsubsidized 30% units. If you have zero income, you have to submit a notarized statement of zero income. Beacon Communities, who will be a property manager, establishes a minimum income so that applicants typically won't pay more than 40% of their monthly income toward rent. If rent is more than 40% of your income, residents are considered cost burdened. That is a industry tech speak there, which creates hardship, stress, and financial instability for the household. So this is for those unsubsidized units. Going to go back here. Remember, these are the ones that have a monthly rent. Sorry, Christian, I should warn you about that. Then you can have zero income for the subsidized units. Every so often that does happen, and there's a form that we would have you fill out, but it's fairly rare. Most people have income of some kind or another in some form or another, but every so often you'll have someone who has zero income. Okay, next question. Do all household members need to meet the age restriction? This goes to your question. No, only one member of the household must meet the age restriction. This also applies to applicants with a disability, since there's no disability exception at this property. So how many of you have heard of properties where you have to be a senior, age 62, or disabled, right? You often see that model. That is not this model. There is no disability exception at this property. The age restrictions are absolute as they are. So if someone was 35 years old, but with a disability, they would not be eligible. There's no disability exception for this property. Are there any 2 or 3 bedroom apartments? No, they're all studios or 1 bedroom. So the maximum occupancy of 2 people. This conforms to the state sanitary code. Sometimes in the open market, you might see 7 or 8 people in a 2 bedroom, or you might see 1 person in a 4 bedroom. Lucky for them. We have to follow very strict rules about occupancy and sanitary code. And so the maximum number of people would be 2 people in either the studio or 1 bedroom. Is there an asset limit? This is a really tricky question, so I'm going to read it carefully. It's hard to go into a lot of detail because of changing regulations. So in accordance with current, keyword current federal regulations, there's no asset limit for households seeking housing for the unsubsidized units at the 60% or 30% level. As applicable, the higher of actual income earned from assets or the imputed income of 0.06% of assets will be counted as income. Assets can include cash, the net cash value of stocks, checking and savings accounts, investment accounts, real property, CDs, retirement account, bonds, life insurance, capital investments, etc. This is very tricky language. You don't need to understand it. I'm happy to talk people through it later, but the key message here is assets are considered in your income calculation, depending on the type and the amount and the unit eligibility that you might fall into. So again, there's different units that have different rules. You don't have to know them all, but we will process your application in accordance with those rules. Next question, are pets allowed? Yes, there's a pet washing station. Isn't that amazing? However, I think there are some breed restrictions, and size restrictions, and I might ask one of you to go a little bit deeper on that question, maybe.
If speaking about pets, to be honest, speaking about income restrictions, I'm happy to do it. So we do allow pets. It's basically, one cat or one dog per apartment. And then you can also have, one small animal. So that would be like something along the lines of a bird or a fish. There are size and breed restrictions, as Anna mentioned. I believe the size restriction is 40 pounds. And there are a list of breed restrictions, that, follow, the guidance from Mass Housing and the breed restrictions that they've published. So they tend to be of the more aggressive breeds, but there's a lot of them on the list. So if you would like a copy, we can get a copy for you. And before I forget, I do have some business cards up front here. So if anybody wants to take one, if they have a question later, they can feel free to email me and we can help answer your question.
Great, thank you. One important distinction here too is that pets are allowed, but in addition to pets, emotional support animals and service animals are always allowed. And those are actually different than pets legally. Okay, this is a really important question. It comes up a lot. Can the lottery winners choose their unit between either the unit size, I want a studio, I want a 1-bedroom, or I want unit 505 because it's the biggest and it's the corner and it looks out over the park. I was number 1, I want to choose my unit. That's actually not how this works. So behind the grounds, all the units will be awarded based on the lottery draw order, subject to the requirements of the stacking plan and the preferences as they apply. What does that mean? So that means that within the building, by state and federal law, you have to mix up the units. You can't concentrate all of the people with local preference in one wing, all of the people with higher income in another wing, all of the people with the highest income get the biggest units. That has to conform to federal fair housing law. And so because of that, there's an approved stacking plan that Beacon submitted with the property that sort of lays out exactly which unit can be assigned to which type of applicant with their preferences. And that's how it works. It's almost like you're being dealt your cards, right? You're playing a game. It's a lottery. And if you get dealt the ace of hearts, lucky for you. If you get dealt the 2 of clubs, which I believe is the card you start with in hearts, that's just that's what you get, right? It's not like you're choosing on the open market or you're buying something. I know that's a hard concept for people, but that's typically how it works. I still own my own home, but I want to move into the development. Can I apply? Yes, you can still own a home and apply for the lottery. However, if you are selected for an apartment during the lottery process, the affordable unit must become your principal full-time residence. If you choose to retain your home and also occupy a unit at BVLA, any rental income you receive will be included in your gross income calculation. Please note that home ownership may be prohibited for the subsidized units at the 30% level, subject to program rules. So again, depending on the unit type, in some cases you can own a home, in other cases you cannot. Regardless of whether or not you own a home, BVLA must become your principal full-time residence. Which relates to the next question of, I like to go away for the winter. I have a house in Florida. I want to visit my sister who lives in Arizona. Can I lease out or rent out my apartment? And the answer is no. You may not sublease your apartment to another person or operate it as an Airbnb. We actually have gotten this question quite a lot. The unit must be your principal full-time residence. However, you can take vacations, you can take trips, provided that you're not away from the apartment longer than the term specified in your lease. Will be made clear, and it's typically 2 to 6 weeks, from my understanding. Can overnight guests stay or have people come visit you? Yes, of course they can. You have friends, you have family, you might have grandchildren that want to come visit for a night. That's okay. You can have overnight guests and visitors as long as they don't total staying with you for more than 2 weeks a year. And this idea is that you don't want to have other people living with you as opposed to visiting with you. That would be prohibited by the lease. But you can have people come over, you can have people stay overnight. They just can't stay with you for more than 2 weeks a year. Okay. Everybody still good so far?
We're
Good over
ready.
there?
We're ready.
Okay, we're all together. All right, this is how the lottery process goes itself. There are two pools. We're going to talk about what makes up the local pool in just a minute. But there is a local pool, which will be for applicants with local preference for Beverly, Salem, and Peabody. And then there's the open pool, which is everyone who is in the local pool and everyone else. So if you have a local preference number, when you get pulled into the lottery, you're actually going to be pulled twice, if that makes sense. So when you go through the process, the first step is you'll go through our office, we'll process the application, it will determine your eligibility. If you're eligible, you will be assigned a unique confidential lottery number. So let's pretend my colleague Kristen Carlson is eligible for the lottery. She might be assigned a number. What's your favorite lucky number?
19.
19. Kristen Carlson is now number 19 in the lottery. And the reason we do that is so that on the day of the lottery, when we pull the tickets out, instead of saying Kristen Carlson and announce to the world who that number was, the number will be said 19. Kristen will know her number, I will know her number, but I won't be pulling the tickets. So that way it's total fairness and it's also confidential for your privacy. We do that on purpose. Sometimes people shout and cheer or cry when their numbers are called. That's on you. If you reveal yourself to be number 19 and celebrate, that's great. But we're gonna let you make that decision. That's not for us to do. When we get to the lottery, the first thing will happen is we draw everyone in that local pool. We'll go through all the local applicants. Those tickets will be one color. Then we'll draw the open pool, which will be a different color tickets. Again, all the people who are in the local pool go into the open pool as well. You get pulled twice. You have two different positions. Then after that, we start awarding the units. That will not happen on the day of the lottery. So let me pause here. We'll go over this again on the lottery. The night of the lottery, all that happens is we put you in order. We do not tell you who won. We do not figure out who's getting what unit. We literally make a list in order, and that's what we do. Then we go back and we process that list based on the preferences, household size, all those different criteria. And from there, we start to award units in a very specific order. So we're required by state law to award units for mobility and sensory preference first. Then we'll be looking at the local preference units, which units are assigned as local preference, which is limited by the state to 60 units in this case. Then we will award the remaining open pool units based on the open pool draw order. That's the process we have to go. Follow state law. We have no flexibility on that. Let's say then you are, let's just say for arguments, there are 800 people in the lottery and you are drawn at number 800. It's possible you might still get a unit, you never know, but it's more likely you're going to go onto the wait list. The initial wait list for this property will come directly from the lottery. So anyone who is pulled in the lottery who gets a unit will go through the leasing process. If you don't get a unit in the first round of leasing, you go onto the wait list and you will be on the wait list in the order that you were pulled. No one's going to cut ahead of you. We don't move people around after that. It's all based on the open pool draw order. In addition to that, anyone who applies after the lottery will go to the bottom of the list after the open pool. So let's say Kristen, number 19, was in the lottery. She got a unit. Jasa, unfortunately, turned 62 the day after the lottery. She was not in the lottery. It's unfortunate. So the day after the lottery, Jasa submits an application and she's eligible and she meets all the criteria. She would be an amazing model tenant. We love everything about her. She's going to go to the bottom of the list behind everybody who's in the lottery. And then they'll continue to add applicants to that wait list in the order that they're received. Everything that comes to the office is date and time stamped, actually. So even if people apply on the same day, different times, Beacon has the ability to see who was first, right? First in line sort of matters at this point. So that's how applicants will be added to the wait list. Last couple of questions and we're just about done. What does local preference mean? This is a really important question for these three communities in the lottery. For the initial lease up only, immediately following the lottery, BVLA can allocate a maximum of 60 units to applicants who document local preference. There are three different ways you can do that. The first one is applicants who are current residents of, or parents or children of current residents in the cities of Beverly, Salem, or Peabody. So if you live in one of those cities, your parent lives in one of those cities, or you have a child living in one of those cities currently, you would meet that criteria. The second group are applicants who were residents, parents or children of the 3 cities within the last 2 years. So same idea within the last 2 years. Let's say you used to live in Salem, but for some reason you had to move out and you ended up living farther away and you want to move back, and that happened within the last 2 years, you would meet the criteria. Sort of same concepts for the parents and the children. And the last one is fairly straightforward. If you work in any of those 3 cities, you would meet local preference. You do not have to work for the city of Beverly. You just have to work in the city. So if we were applying for this lottery, Kristen and I both work for Harbor Light Homes based in Beverly, Massachusetts. We get local preference. Look at us. Woo-hoo. Once the building is fully occupied, the local preference falls away. This is a state law. There's no flexibility. Local preference only applies to the initial lease up. So once those first 60 units are applied and local preference is fulfilled, the next time that unit gets leased, it goes from the open pool. Local preference is a one-time preference. Similarly, if for some reason we run out of local preference applicants, then we go to the open pool. So having those 2 pools is really important, especially for the long-term leasing of the building. Local preference falls away after the first lease up, and that is state law. Are there any other preferences? You betcha, there are. There are units that are set aside for mobility and sensory needs for people who have a mobility issue, or maybe they have a hearing or vision issue. There are special units that are designed specifically for that. There are also 4 preferences that are designated by mass housing, which is one of the funding sources for this property. Again, they're very technical. They're a little tricky. This is the short version, believe it or not. If you'd like to read more about the mass housing preferences, you can do so. The first preference is, are you homeless due to displacement by natural forces? The second is, are you homeless due to displacement by public action, typically urban renewal, or like a municipal government seizure? The third is, are you homeless due to displacement by public action for state sanitary code violations? And the last one is, have you been displaced through domestic violence, rape or dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking? So those are coming to the property directly from mass housing as a condition of funding. Those preferences overlay the entire property. So it's possible that you could be an applicant who has local preference, ADA preference, and preference number 4 for displacement due to domestic violence. You could actually have multiple preferences all at the same time, and they would give you access to different units depending on the preference assigned for that unit. Again, you don't have to figure that out. That's what Beacon does. Aren't you excited? I'm sure you are. So again, these are all things that are sort of, you just take it step by step through the process and you document things. I'm going to turn it back over to Jason to talk about the market rate studio apartments.
Yes, so as I mentioned, the old boys and girls locker rooms will be turned into 6 artist live work studios. Those are not income or age restricted. So you don't have to be over the age of 55 to qualify for those. And they are not part of this lottery. So there is a separate application and leasing process for those 6 units. And they're also designed, they have unique design features. So whereas the 85 affordable senior apartments, as I mentioned earlier, they are within the former classroom spaces. Because of where these are located in the building, these apartments, you actually access them directly from the ground floor. So instead of having to go through the building, and if you live on the 3rd floor for an affordable senior unit, potentially going up an elevator, these ones are, you walk right into your door for those apartments from the street level. And the finishes, meaning like the appliances, the stove, the refrigerator, the microwave, the washers and dryers, they will all be similar. And they are a little bit bigger just because of where they are located again. So to be eligible for the preference for these apartments, so there's similar to the preferences that Anna was describing for for the affordable senior units. These units have a preference for artist occupancy. And so what does that mean? So our definition for someone who would receive priority as an artist is a person who has a commitment to and or participation in the arts beyond that of a hobby. So it takes up a lot more of your time. This does not mean that the artist's income is derived primarily or even partially from their artistic practice. So that's just to give you a sense, and of course, because it is art, there is some subjectivity to it. And so that's where you would be working with the leasing team to determine your eligibility for preferential access to those units. And as I mentioned, the application process is separate. So to access those applications, you can contact our leasing team. We have an email address here, beverlyvillage@beaconcommunitiesllc.com. And those applications will also be available on the website, which we will provide the link for at the end of the presentation. I think we have some flyers too, right, Anna? So the flyers have the website on them as well, which you can get on to access information on both the affordable senior application and when they're available, the applications for the artist live work units.
Great. All right. Last little bit here. So key dates, we are just about approaching the home stretch here. So the first date is today, right now. Line number 1 is happening. 2 weeks from now, we're gonna have another info session and it's gonna be at night, but otherwise it will feel very similar to this. It may be even identical. So if you have other questions or you have friends who couldn't make it today, there will be another public information session. Then the first really important deadline, March 1st at 4 p.m. That is when the applications will close. The 4 p.m. is important here for 2 reasons. Again, like the birthday, you have to have a cutoff. If it's not 4 or 5, if it's 5, then it's 7, if it's midnight, whatever time it is, there has to be an endpoint. So at 4 o'clock, applications will close if they are submitted in person or online through email. If we get an application at 4:01 and it's perfectly complete, it will be considered late and that person will not be entered into the lottery. It is a firm deadline. That's where the timestamp becomes very, very important. If you are mailing an application, in some ways you get a little bit of latitude. It has to be postmarked by the 1st. So you could potentially drop it off at the post office at 5 o'clock and it will still get postmarked by March 1st. So however you choose to submit it, it's a March 1st deadline and it is unflinching and it is absolute. So you've had plenty of time to apply. There's still 2 more months. Applications have been open, so we strongly encourage you to apply as soon as possible so that we can make sure we have everything and we're not missing anything. Then on April 4th at 6 o'clock, again, right here in this very room, we will have the actual lottery. It will go as fast or as quickly as the number of applicants we have. And then fall 2024, depending on construction at the site, that is when the building will be complete and the lease up will start and the official process of moving people in will begin. So to apply, Jason said there's a couple different applications. The property website is livebeverlyvillage.com. There's all kinds of information there. You can download applications or flyers. You can also email us at applications@harborlight.homes to get one via PDF. We can also mail them to you, however you like. You can get them in person in our office, town hall, council on aging, or the public library. I actually have copies here. We have 5 different languages available: English, Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, and Albanian. If one of those languages is not your preferred language or a friend of yours, let us know and we can get a translation for you. That's a very important part of the mission of both Harbor Light Homes and Beacon Communities, is that we are open and accessible to people with language needs. So that is not a problem at all. Informational flyers are there, applications are there. We're happy to answer any questions. Again, my name is Anna. I am the lottery agent for this property, and we're happy to take questions anytime. So at this moment, I would recommend that we stop the recording But we're happy to stay and answer questions for people who might have them.
Question, so if I